Okay, today we're going to talk about matrices and the graphing calculator and how to do those on the graphing calculator, which going forward, like the test, the final, if there's any matrices on the final, you'll be able to use the graphing calculator for those. So with the graphing calculator, I'm going to go through this pretty quick. So get your graphing calculator out if you have one. If you don't, you should be teamed up with somebody that does have one, sitting alongside next to them and taking a look with them as I go through these examples. You can see here I've already written out the matrix. Go to page 778, number 9, in case I move on or in case you can't read the numbers. But I'm doing page 778, number 9, and that's multiplication of these two matrices. So again, you should be teamed up with somebody and your calculator should be on. You can clear the main page there in the calculator. And let's go ahead, move this off to the side real quick. This is a 3 by 2, right? So it's a 3 by 2, and then this is a 2 by 3. So our new matrix will end up being a 3 by 3. Okay? So now you don't need to take notes necessarily on this in terms of writing all this down. You may want to take a note like what buttons to hit, and you can review this later if you want. But our new matrix will be a 3 by 3, so 3 rows by 3 columns because it's our outside dimensions. Now before we would take this row by this column and say 1 times 1 is 1 plus a negative 2, so we get a negative 1 there. Okay, then you'd take this row by this column, 0 plus 2, so you'd get 2 there. 0 plus 2, you get 2 there. Negative 1 plus 0, 2 and 0, so negative 1, or excuse me, this is a 2 by 4. Sorry about that. So you get 1, negative 1, 2 and 0 is negative 1. So, and 4 columns there. Sorry about that. So it'd be a 3 by 4. Okay, so we would go through and do that process, but there's a way to do it on the calculator to do the multiplication of it. Okay, so the multiplication of it is, again, your book can be open in case I cover it up with the calculator. Move this off to the side a little bit. The calculator, what you want to do is you want to go to the math function. So math function is right here below alpha. We click on the math function. Excuse me, that's not what we want to do. Quit out of that, second quit. Okay, so we're back to the main page. What I want to do is go to the matrix function, which is below the math function. I go second matrix. Okay, and in the matrix then I have these matrix A, B, C, D, E, F, and I've already done some work with the matrices. So what you're seeing with that is you're seeing the matrix A here already is a 3 by 4, B is a 3 by 3. That's fine if there's stuff already entered in there. We're going to go over to edit right here. And so I'm going to scroll over to edit, and I'm going to edit matrix A. And what I'm going to do, when I hit enter, it flashes that it's a 3 by 4. I'm going to make that a 3 by 2 because that's the matrix I'm using right here. So I'm going to hit 3. Let me move this up onto the screen. 3, enter, and then it's 2, enter. And you'll see the dimensions of the matrix change where it's just 3 rows and 2 columns right there. Now these numbers may be hard to see, so follow along with what I'm typing in. You can see here in the bottom left, see it's highlighted 1, comma 1. That means row 1, column 1. And what we're going to enter for row 1, column 1 is a 1. So we're going to hit 1. Then we're going to hit enter, and it jumps over to row 1, column 2, and we're going to enter a 2, and then hit enter. And then keep going, 3, enter, negative 1, enter, 0, enter, 4, enter. So now I've entered 1, 2, 3, negative 1, 0, 4, 1, 2, 3, negative 1, 0, 4. Okay? So I have matrix A has been edited. Now I'm going to edit matrix, a different matrix. So what I want to do is hit second matrix to get out of this. Okay, and I'm going to edit the next matrix, which will be matrix B. So I got to go over to edit again. You're going to scroll over to edit. You can either hit the number 2 or scroll down to 2. And I'm going to hit the number 2. Now this is going to be a 2 by 4, this matrix right here. So 2, enter, 4, enter. And you can see 2 rows, and then there's 4 columns. That other column isn't listed yet. It's over here. Now I'm going to move this off to the other side, or actually I'll just shift the paper over. So the matrix I'm going to enter is 1, or the numbers, elements, 1, 0, 0, negative 1. So 1, enter, 0, enter, 0, enter, negative 1. Make sure to hit the negative button, not the subtraction button. And then negative 1, enter 1, enter 1, enter 0, enter. So now I've entered all the elements for my 2 by 4. Give you a second to catch up there. Now what I'm going to do is I want to multiply matrix A by matrix B because I entered that one as matrix B. Now if you chose for some reason C and D, then you'd want to multiply C by D. I'm going to go back to matrix like this, and I'm going to hit matrix A underneath names. So don't go over to edit because we don't want to edit it. We're just going to go underneath names. I'm going to hit the enter because it's on matrix A. So enter. Whoops. That was an error. If yours popped up, I made an error there. Okay, so right here, don't hit anything else. I'm just going to hit clear. What happened is I was telling the calculator, because I went back into matrix, I was telling the calculator to insert matrix A into row 2, column 4. And I was telling the calculator to put the entire matrix A in there, which I don't want to do. So I want to make sure this is 0 here, if that happened to you. What I need to do, so 0, I'm entering 0. What I need to do is second quit. You need to get out of the matrix program. And now I can go back into matrix and then choose matrix A. So now I'm going to choose matrix A, and I have matrix A there, and then I'm going to go times, okay, matrix B. So I got to go back into my matrix function, and I'm going to hit the number 2, or just scroll down. I'm just going to hit the number 2 times matrix B and hit enter. And what we see here is that it pops up our answer, our matrix, negative 1, 2, 2, negative 1, which matches negative 1, 2, 2, negative 1, and then it gives us the rest of the values for negative 1, negative 1, negative 3, negative 4, 4, 4, and 0. And there you have your 3 by 4 matrix. Now what would happen if you tried to go B minus A or B times A? It would be a 2 by 4 times a 3 by 2. Your inside dimensions wouldn't work. And I'll just show you that. So if I went matrix B times matrix A, I would get a dimension mismatch, DIM mismatch, because the dimensions are mismatched. So I could hit go to, and it would show me that, hey, A is flashing, meaning something's wrong with A. Okay, so that's your multiplication of matrices. So I'm going to move that one off to the side. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at page 789, number 7, or you can just look right here, but if you get lost or I cover up the numbers, just go to page 789, number 7. If you recall from the test and from the notes, the straight up and down bars, like the absolute value symbol, if you will, without the little bracket, that represents the determinant. Well, can I take the determinant on my calculator? You bet. So let's go ahead and enter. Let's make a 3 by 3 matrix. Now we are already done with A and B. We could use A and B, it doesn't matter, or we can edit C. So let's go over to edit. Let's go over to C, down to C. I'm going to just use C for my matrix. And it's going to be a 3 by 3. Now if it's already a 3 by 3, you can just hit enter and hit enter. You don't actually have to hit the number 3 and enter. So I now have a 3 by 3 matrix. You're going to see here if you can, okay, you might be able to see the numbers I'm plugging in. They're small, but hopefully you can see the keystrokes I'm doing. Okay, so now I'm going to enter 2, enter, negative 5, enter, 3, enter, 0, 8, 1, negative 5, 4, and 0. Give you a second to get all that down. So just hitting enter after each one. And now, once I've finished off the 0 there, putting the 0 in, I'm going to go to second quit, because I want to get out of my matrix function. And then what I want to do is I'm going to go back into my matrix function. I want to find the determinant. DET. Well, you're actually going to find the operation for that underneath math. Underneath your matrix, not this math button here, but underneath your matrices, underneath math. So we're going to go over to math, and then you see DET stands for determinant. And so I'm going to hit enter for determinant, and it's flashing. It's saying determinant of what? So once I hit determinant, DET, I'm going to go back into matrix, and I'm going to pick the matrix, which was matrix 3, and I'm going to, well, matrix 3, letter C, matrix C. I'm going to hit enter, and then hit enter. And the determinant is 137, which if you did it by minors or by diagonals, you would get the same answer. You might remember that one from the test. I think that one was on your test. So you get the determinant is 137. Okay, let's do an inverse. Okay, now if you recall, an inverse, it was, to find an inverse, it was 1 over the determinant, so 6 minus a negative 6, so it would have been 6 plus 6, so 12. And then we took our elements and we switched 2 and 3, and then we changed the sign on element here and element here, those diagonals. And so we would have gotten, and distribute the 12 in, scalar multiplication, you would have gotten 1 6, 1 12, negative 1 half, and 1 4th. Have to squeeze it in there by distributing that in. And those would have been my values. So that actually doing the inverse that way isn't necessarily too hard. We didn't do, I don't think we did 3 by 3s, but let's go ahead and see if I can do the inverse with my calculator and get the same answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a 2 by 2 matrix. So I'm going to go into my matrix function, my matrix operation of the calculator. I'm going to go over to edit. Doesn't matter. If you want to go, let's get rid of A. We don't need A. So I'm going to edit A, and it's going to be a 2 by 2. So I hit 2, enter, 2, enter. So I'm making a 2 by 2. I'm going to say 3, first element, negative 1 for the second element, 6, then row 2, column 1, and then 2. Now, I'm going to, once I have those, I'm going to go second quit. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into matrix, and I've chosen matrix A, right? Hit enter. The inverse, I can actually use the inverse button, which is actually the matrix button that we've been hitting, but I'm not going to use second. I'm just going to do, it's x to the negative 1 right here. And that will find for me the inverse. Now, in the inverse, I'll notice it gives me 0.1666 repeating, and then negative 0.5. Well, if I match that here, 1 6 is actually 0.166 repeating. Negative 0.5, well, that's the same as negative 1 half. And if I scroll over on my calculator, I can see 0.0833, which is 1/12, and 0.25, which is 1/4. Now, if you want to change that, you can go math and into fraction. I hit math button, and then I want to get rid of the decimal and go into fraction right there. Hit enter, enter. And it gives me the 1 6, 1/12, negative 1 half, and 1/4, which is exactly what I got right there. So that's actually pretty easy to do on the calculator, you know, the inverse function, rather than doing it longhand. You don't have to remember that you need to, you know, swap these elements, change the sign on these elements, 1 over the determinant, all done for you right there. Okay, now the crowning jewel of the matrix operations on your calculator is this. All right, now I'm going to move the calculator off to the side. This is page 805, number 15. Now this is what I wrote up here, RREF. That's row reduction echelon form. You don't have to have that memorized, row reduction echelon form, but just have the letters, the acronym RREF ingrained in your mind. What it's going to do is, it's going to allow us to take a giant matrix like this and solve for every variable, A, B, C, and D. Okay, so before, if you recall, before I made a coefficient matrix and then I did a variable matrix, A, B, C, D, and then I did a constant matrix, and then you would have to take the inverse of both sides, and then in order to do the inverse of a 4 by 4, because that's what this would be, a 4 by 4, actually, 4 by 4 for the coefficient matrix, and then you'd have to do an inverse of both sides. I mean, a fair amount of work. So here's the beauty of it. Our calculator will do all the work for us, and it's actually called augmenting a matrix, which we didn't cover, but we use in that augmenting row reduction echelon form. A guy with the last name of Echelon came up with this, and it reduces the rows, and it's like adding and subtracting your rows, if you will. That's what you're doing. You're adding, subtracting, multiplying the rows to get rid of variables and then solve. Okay, so what you're going to do is we're going to make a matrix. The matrix is going to be all the coefficients and the constants all in one giant matrix. So it's going to be 4 rows by 5 columns. So go ahead on your calculator, make a 4 by 5. I've written it out here. This is a 4 by 5, 4 rows by 5 columns. And it's using every element, the coefficients along with the constants. I don't have to separate them, I just make it one giant matrix, okay? So you make a 4 by 5. Now I'll leave that, actually I'll just move this off to the side slightly. Hopefully keep it in your viewing window and bring the calculator up here. And so I'm going to go second matrix, I'm going to edit. And it's going to be a 4 rows by 5 columns. And you can choose A, B, C, D, whatever letter you want. Okay, the numbers are still in there, good. Okay, now, we enter all of these, don't make an error. So 2, enter, -3, enter, 1. And I'll be silent while you plug them in so we don't confuse ourselves. Okay, I am done. Hopefully you're nearing that. And I'm just checking, I got a 4, 5, which means row 4, column 5, I put a 6 in there, row 4, column 5. Well, sure enough, what did I want in there? I wanted a 6, so it looks like I got the right number going there. Okay, now, with this, we're going to then go second quit. And we're going to go back into our matrix. And we're going to go over to math now. Over to math function. So not the names, but the math, not the edit, the math right in the middle. Where we found the determinant. What we're going to do is, we're not going to augment, we're going to look for RREF. There it is. Mine's letter B. RREF. So find RREF, row reduction echelon form, hit enter. Now we're going to go back in, we're going to pick the matrix that we edited. So I edited A, so I'm going to choose A. And then I'm going to hit enter. Now, we get this diagonal matrix of 1s and then these numbers over here on the right hand side. Well, what this states then, I'm going to move this sheet off and reference it on this paper here. What this states for us is a matrix 1 0 0 0 2 0 1 0 0 2 0 0 1 0 -2 0 0 0 1 -1. What this states for us is our answers for our variables. So when I look at this, remember the columns we plugged in, these were all the coefficients, if you will. Put this back up here. This column was all the coefficients for A, so 2, 1, 3, 3, 2, 1, 3, 3. This column 2 is all the coefficients for B, so -3, 2, 5, -1, -3, 2, 5, -1. Okay, so on and so forth. Then this was all the constants. So these represented A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. Okay, now when I look at that, the same is true here. Therefore, when I look at this first row, this is representing 1a. I'm going to write it down here. 1a plus 0b plus 0c plus 0d equals 2. Well, 1a plus 0 plus 0 plus 0, 0, 0, 0, those all zero out, and you're just left with a is equal to 2. So the first row is a equals 2. The second row right here is 0a, because it's 0 for the a, 1 for the b, plus 1b, plus 0 for the c, and 0 for the d, and therefore is equal to 2 as well. Therefore, a's, c's, and d's all cancel, and you're just left with b is equal to 2. Now, I'm not going to keep doing that, but the idea is 0a, 0b, 1c, 0d, therefore c equals negative 2. C equals negative 2. A, b, and c are all zeroed out. D, just squeeze over here, is equal to negative 1. And so that would be a much easier way just to do RREF, and it'll solve it all for you. And don't you wish I would have showed you that before you took the test? Okay. Well, that's all I have. So carry on with your, well actually I think you're going to go to your next lecture, then do homework on that. This will be useful for, depends on what class you take in college, and also for the final. And next year if you take pre-calc, it'll be all calculator based.